Hi, I'm Carrie, and welcome to So Darn Fun. Here we focus on quality clothing alterations, pattern reviews, and useful sewing how-tos, but today we're going to deviate a little bit. We are going to take this tablecloth and make it into a curtain. Why are we making a curtain? Because spring is coming, and sometimes it's just nice to give your living environment a nice, new, fresh look. Don't go anywhere. Before we start cutting around on our fabric, we're going to have to do some measuring and a little bit of simple math. So the measurements that you're going to want to get are the measurements from the top of your curtain rod to however long you want your curtain to hang. In my case, it's just below the window itself. And when I measure that from the top of the curtain rod to the bottom of the window, it's 41 inches. So I'm just going to write that down. And then my window width, which is also 41 inches. So in figuring how wide you need your curtain panel to be, it needs to be wider than your window to allow it to have a little bit of fullness and gathering, slight gathering with the grommets. We need to take our 41 inches and we need to multiply it by 1.5, so that's 1.5 times the actual width, and we come up with 61.5. I'm just going to round that up to 62 just to make it an easier number to work with. And then we're going to add on seam allowances on either side, and I like to fold them in 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, so that's 1 inch on each side. So we're going to add 2 inches, which is going to make it 64 inches. This is going to be what our width is going to be cut. Now with our length, it's a little bit different figuring because we've got a big 4-inch header at the top. That'll help support the grommets. And we've got a hem at the bottom. I like a nice big 4-inch hem also, but you could do it much smaller hem if you wanted. And then there's a little bit of allowance also added into that length for the little bit that, I'm going to draw some little grommets here. The curtain actually comes above those little grommets. Obviously it has to stick up above that. Don't you love my artwork? It's a scribble now. So anyway, we're going to add a little bit onto that. So let's take our length, which is 41 inches, and I'm just going to throw out all those numbers already added together, and that's 10.5 inches. That's 4.5 inches for the bottom, 4.5 inches, and another 1.5 inches for that top. And so that's going to come out to be 51.5. And once again, I don't like dealing with those 1/2 inches, so we're just going to round that up to 52 inches. So we need to cut our curtain panel 64 by 52. So there is no way that my cutting table can accommodate that large of a fabric. So I'm going to take this to the floor and grab a yardstick and do some marking, and I will cut it out there. So this long edge here is the side. So I'm going to hem this, start by pressing it 1/2 inch in, and then I'm going to press it again 1/2 inch over that. Kind of eyeballing it here because I pretty much know what 1/2 inch looks like. I have 6 of these curtains to do, so I'm trying to do it as quickly as I can. So there's the first turn. Now we're going to fold it over again. Then we're going to stitch that. So let's get this pressed, and then I'll meet you over at the machine where we'll just quickly buzz up this side of the curtain. Now that we've got the side seams sewn, we're gonna tackle that top header. And for this, we're gonna first also press it under 1/2 inch all the way across. Then once you've done that, fold it down 4 inches. And then press that. For me, this is the same way I'm doing the top and the bottom. You may wish to do the bottom hem more narrow, but you're going to want your top hem or your top header to be nice and deep. If you're using smaller grommets, mine look pretty big. But if you have a smaller one, you can go 3 inches, but I think 4 inches is a good standard. So once we're done with that, then we're gonna just top stitch this down. Incidentally, you can pin this if you want. I didn't pin it, so I hope that my layers come out even. Pinning it will help keep the tension the same between the top and bottom. We are doing the same process for the bottom hem of the curtain. So let's get that 1/2 inch turned up first. And now the 4 inches, just like we did to the top. It's identical. Just repeat the process. Done with that, let's stitch that up too. Are you ready for the fun part now? At least I think this is the fun part, and that is the placing of our grommets. So before you go randomly cutting and trying to place these grommets in, we need to do a little bit more math. So I'm gonna take some of the measurements that we talked about earlier and show you what to do with it. Before I can start doing my math, I need to figure out how many of these grommets that I want on my curtain. Typically, a package of grommets comes in a set of 8. So I'm assuming that 8 is probably kind of standard, but every curtain can be a different width. I knew that I wanted my curtain to have 10 grommets instead of 8, just because I didn't want the pleats in between them to be so deep. So I want 10 grommets. I'm going to take the width of my curtain panel, which is 62 inches. I'm going to divide it by 10. 6.2, that's going to be the distance between each grommet. I'm going to round that up to about 6.25 just to make it easier to remember, and little teeny tiny amounts of difference in where these grommets are placed isn't going to matter. But I don't want it 6¼ inches from the edge for the starting one. That's kind of far with this flopping out here. So I need to figure out how far from the edge we've got to start. So the way I do that is I take the 6.2 and I just divide that in half. So 3.1 inches. I'll round that down to just 3 and a little wiggle room more from the edge. That's where I'm going to start my first grommet, the center of it. So let's do some measuring. Incidentally, I'll put these numbers and figurings in the description so that you can just refer to that for the math that needs to be done. So actually the first thing that I like to do is to fold my curtain in half. This kind of gives me a system of checks and balances for my measuring before I measure too far and mark too many points that might not be accurate. Here's a pin I've put in the middle on the fold, and then I'm going to open it flat and try to keep it from falling off of my ironing board at the same time. All right, so already my math tells me that I need to start 3 inches from the end. So I'm going to measure 3 inches and just put a pin kind of toward the top fold at that 3-inch mark. And then my math told me that my grommet in from the end is going to be about 6.2 inches, and I was rounding that to about 6.25. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure over here just slightly less. Sorry about the glare. Okay, slightly less than my 6 1/4, and stick a pin right there. And that's what I'm going to do for the next one. And the next one. And once I get to this middle one here, this is going to be half the distance than these two here. So it should be about 3 inches. Let's see what we have here. It's a little bit more. It's like 3 3/8, which means the distance between the one left of center and right of center is going to be a little bit farther apart. So what I can do is I'm going to just scoot this pin in to be about 3 1/8, and then just kind of redistribute these pins over here. Now the reason for that is because my curtain panel isn't exactly 62 inches. It's just off by just a slight amount. So there's all those little variables. This is 6, okay, so we're okay. 6 1/4, and then that's going to be just fine. So now the question is, all right, so I know where my spacing is going to be, but how far down do I put it? Let's get our seam gauge and know that the center of our template is going to be 2 1/4 inches from the top fold. So like this one, for instance, I'm gonna take my measuring stick and measure 2 1/4 and put a dot right there. This pen is erasable, but also this part's going to be cut out. And then I can put my template with that dot in the middle and trace the line. Now I like to trace the inner portion rather than the outer portion because I want to get my circle cut as small as possible so it kind of gets a tighter fit inside my grommet, especially because I don't have very many layers. You can put curtain tape, or I can't remember the name of it, that you put in between the layers. Sometimes there's iron-on if you really want a stiffer header. So here's this one. So you're going to do this on all the places where you've pinned, and of course on that other side of curtain that we haven't marked over on that side. So let's get this done, and you'll notice this is going to be centered like that, and then this top portion here is that 3/4 inch that we added, 3/4 inch times 2, of course, because it's folded over, that we added when we were figuring out what to cut our curtain out to be. So let me mark this, and I will be back for the next step of the fun part. In case you were interested, this is what the entire panel looks like, the upper edge with all the markings. Every marking turned out just fine. The spacing was great. Incidentally, I did the markings on the back side of the curtain. I don't know that it really matters, but that's just where my markings are. So now that I have those all nicely marked, I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just going to start cutting out that circle. I like to fold it in half and do a hash in the middle like that, and then cut them out. I'm going to put these grommets in one at a time. I don't want to cut all my circles out at once. Mainly because I think that if I cut them all out at once, some of the fabric might pull, some of the layers might pull unevenly for the other holes that are cut out. The grommets might not go in as well. I don't think I'm explaining that correctly, but okay, there's one out. There's my hole. I guess what I'm trying to say that if I put a grommet in and it happens to pull this top layer over a little bit more on my second one here, then the bottom and top layer aren't going to be even for my next grommet. So I think it's safe to just do one at a time. Now, in my grommets, there's this funny little plastic thing. I have never seen this before, but I think the purpose of this is so that this plastic ring rides on the curtain rod and the wear and tear is going to be on this and not on your actual grommet. So I'm just going to set that aside and see if I can show you how they fit together. This inside part here, one fits inside the other. the shadowing. I don't know if you can see that. And on mine, this side has these little these little ridges, and this side does not. So I can remember that the ridges go inside the top one. So the one that goes inside, I want that to go on the bottom and come through this way. And I'm going to put this little ring in here. And this top one I line up and just press it down. It takes a good strong hand, maybe not too strong, but my hands are a little bit weak. So I might put this on my carpeted floor and press on it really hard. I don't want to do that on my ironing board. Just to make sure that it's down nice and tight. And that's all there is to it. You just keep doing the same thing. Through all of these, all 10 of them. So this is a really great way to spruce up your windows for springtime. And it's really not that time consuming. My grommets come kind of stuck. They need to be pulled apart. These were very inexpensive. I got them on Amazon, so I think that there might be other brands that are better packaged. But I can just take my little sewing machine screwdriver and gently pry it apart. You can hear it unclick. Unclick? Definitely clicking, but it's unsnapping from itself. There we go. All right, and once again, this one has the ridges here. I can see how beneficial it would be if there was an extra layer in this header to really help this grommet grip down. This is a tablecloth, which is very thin. Anyway, so that's all there is to it. Now you can make some curtains. When I'm done, I will show you what it looks like. And as you can see, here's our finished curtain. I like the way it looks and it was not too hard to do. Thanks for joining me today on So Darn Fun. If you plan on making some curtains, why don't you let us know in the comments below. Also, if you've made curtains like this before and you have any tips or tricks, drop it in the comments to help others out. Thank you once again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.